heavily armored warrior raises a blood-soaked sword over a battlefield strewn with the fallen, announcing the brutal dawn of a new war series. A helmeted soldier grimaces in disgust, teeth bared, gripping his weapon like a man who wants no part of what comes next. A pair of boots trudges across the battlefield. War is simply the ground beneath someone's feet. A wave of silhouetted soldiers crests a hill with spears raised, pouring down toward a valley already packed with an army of enemies. The battlefield below is blanketed with both the dead and the still standing, a grim ledger of what victory costs. A wave of silhouetted soldiers crests a hill with spears raised, pouring down toward a valley already packed with an army of enemies. The battlefield below is blanketed with both the dead and the still standing, a grim ledger of what victory costs. A wave of silhouetted soldiers crests a hill with spears raised, pouring down toward a valley already packed with an army of enemies. Two soldiers stand in the aftermath, one commenting on the carnage with weary disbelief as a lone spear juts from the earth beside them. A dark-haired soldier in a helmet glances sideways, sweat on his brow, saying nothing. Soldiers at a distance gather around a body that hasn't moved in too long. Someone gives the order to finish it. A wounded soldier lies bleeding from the mouth as a sword is plunged into his chest, ending it. The dark-haired soldier stares downward, his expression unreadable but his silence saying plenty. A shielded soldier stands over a body and waves another away. There is nothing left to do here. The face of a dead soldier, bloodied and still, stares up at nothing. A soldier drives his sword straight down into a man on the ground, and the man cries out one last time. The dark-haired soldier watches with one eye and a gauntleted hand raised, betraying nothing. The battlefield stretches wide and silent. A soldier carrying a massive shield on his back walks among the dead like a man used to the scenery. A television broadcasts cheerful advice about staying hydrated on a sunny day, indifferent to the world around it. Two suited men stand with their backs turned in an office. One of them is about to be introduced as Takakura Raizou. A man's face twists in shock or strain, the weight of something enormous written across his features. A salaryman in a suit stands in a dark hallway, briefcase in hand, steeling himself for another day. The same man drags himself up a tiled staircase, head in his hand, utterly exhausted. The salaryman collapses outside the building, crumpling to the ground in a heap. He clutches his chest in agony, gasping and groaning as pain tears through him. Sweat pours down his chin as he struggles to breathe, the sudden chest pain refusing to let go. His eyes, behind glasses, gaze upward from the ground. He does not want to die. The life of Takakura Raizou ends abruptly, but the man who rises in a strange new world will carry a different name. A dark-haired, stubbled man named Walm presses his hands together in a habitual gesture of prayer, drawing someone's attention. A nearby soldier calls out to Walm. Walm smiles faintly and rubs the back of his gauntleted head. It is just a habit, he admits. A dark-haired young soldier named Jose grins and tells the group to move out. Soldiers mill about the aftermath of battle, and someone wonders aloud whether their commander will brag about the results again. Sword hilts and soldier gear fill the foreground as someone replies with flat disbelief. Two soldiers walk through a desolate landscape dotted with wooden gallows, bodies hanging in the distance, as someone asks if Walm really took down 9 enemies. Jose strides alongside a weary-looking Walm and tells him he should be proud of himself. Walm, dark circles under his eyes, stares ahead and says there is nothing to be proud of. Jose looks at him, genuinely puzzled. Walm keeps walking, back turned, and says it was simply his job. A hanged body sways from a wooden beam as Walm says he was not killing to rack up numbers. When the state commands you to kill, killing is duty. Walm was only ever doing his duty. Walm finishes the thought as a soldier. A narrator's caption confirms it plainly. Walm lives in a world where war never stops. Jose smiles to himself and calls Walm an incredibly serious guy. Walm walks ahead but glances back over his shoulder. He heard that. The two soldiers shrink into the distance as Jose cheerfully insists they regroup, apparently surprised that Walm was sitting just moments ago. Walm finishes the thought as a soldier. A military camp sprawls at night, lit by campfires, alive with soldiers eating, resting, and moving between rows of tents. Walm sits on a crate eating from a bowl, quiet and alone with his food. Walm startles as someone shouts his name. A large, scarred soldier throws an arm around Walm and roars about his own kill count of 15, already reeking of alcohol, crowing that he wins. Walm stares back with the tired, unamused face of a man who would very much like to finish his meal. The scarred man, Commander Dewey, laughs openly and boasts that Walm simply cannot beat him, thanks to his special skill. Two newcomers, the grinning Burrito and the composed Nor, stand together in uniform as someone grumbles that skills are nothing but an unfair advantage. Jose notices the two rookies and identifies them to the group. Burrito salutes with a wide smile while Nor stands beside him. The nickname Coxcomb has already been assigned. The group gathers around a campfire and the argument spills into debate. Is what Dewey has a skill, a cheat, or simply talent? Nor raises her hand and asks Commander Due directly, is it really true that his war hammer can break through any kind of armor? Due throws his arms wide near a tent and declares it is absolutely true, gushing about how cool skills are. Walm and Jose sit listening as the conversation turns to the difference between magic and skills, skills being real, physical, superhuman power. A shirtless, muscular Due grins with his bandaged arms on display, the living proof that his particular skill amounts to a guaranteed killing technique. Walm stares into the middle distance and admits quietly that he wishes he had something like that. On a night battlefield, a dead soldier lies chest wound open in the foreground, while Duke's silhouette dominates the background, weapon raised, a one-man tide turner. Jose smirks and points out that a skill like that would also be worth a lot of money, continuing his habit of haggling. Jose leans forward with a knowing grin and asks Walm directly, he wants a skill too, doesn't he, given he doesn't have one either. Walm says nothing. Walm picks up a wooden mug and begins to drink. He keeps drinking. Walm finally answers, only if it were free, and goes back to his mug. In the foreground, a bald, scarred man presses a small blade to his forehead while Jose and Walm look on, the squad's magic user doing whatever magic users do. Walm smiles over his mug and admits that magic sounds like a wonderful thing to dream about, an uncharacteristically wistful moment. Walm's eye catches something, or perhaps drifts inward. Jose stares at Walm in open-mouthed shock. Jose completely loses his composure, shouting for Due and declaring that Walm just admitted to having dreams, triggering a dramatic intervention from the whole squad. Walm lies down and closes his eyes, muttering that he is sleepy and would prefer no one shout near him. Jose mentions that tomorrow's plans need to be discussed. Due's scarred, grim face fills the frame as he confirms there will be a great many battles ahead. The squad gathers around the campfire, and below them, Walm's eyes sharpen. Their new enemy is Mjard. Jose mentions that tomorrow's plans need to be discussed. Due's scarred, grim face fills the frame as he confirms there will be a great many battles ahead. A campaign map lays out the geopolitics. The Highserk Empire's army is massing at Saria City near the former kingdom of Kanoa, on the edge of Mjard territory. A closer map marks Walm's squad's route toward Saria City. Their path forward is plotted. Due grins wide and narrow-eyed, declaring that the war against Liberatoa is just the opening act. The real prize is Mjard. The whole squad looks up with a mix of resolve, excitement, and nerves as Due announces they're going for Mjard. Nor taps her chin thoughtfully while Due warns them this will be unlike anything they have faced, a truly massive battle. The magic user and Jose exchange a glance. Walm stares downward, shadow falling across his face. The word to prepare themselves lands heavily on him. The whole squad looks up with a mix of resolve, excitement, and nerves as Due announces they're going for Mjard. A blade or spear drips with blood in the darkness. A chaotic sea of silhouettes clash on the battlefield. Battle has arrived. A soldier drives a spear down into another from above. An enemy soldier gasps and weeps, begging for his life and mentioning his family, and Walm hears every word. Walm looks down at the man and states flatly that he is a soldier, and soldiers do what is needed to stay alive. Walm ducks under an enemy's sword swing in a split second of survival. Walm's eye snaps upward, sharp and alert. Walm stands alone on the battlefield, spear in hand. A blade punches through something with a spray of blood. Someone keeps score and calls it 10. Jose and Commander Due grin side by side, Due fully helmeted, as one of them teases the rookie for finding time to daydream in the middle of a battle. Through a dark castle archway, soldiers haul a wagon forward. Walm snaps back to attention, sweat on his face as his name is called. A group of armored soldiers march down a cobblestone path. Someone asks if Walm was daydreaming, and the answer is clearly yes. An armored boot steps onto stone. They have arrived. Saria City opens up before them, a waterfront town of tall European-style buildings and stone walls, with civilians sitting along the ground. Soldiers walk down a narrow alley as Jose invites Walm to join Commander Due for a drink before the morning. Walm agrees without hesitation. A long-haired woman tugs down her dress strap to reveal a scarred shoulder and offers her company for the night. Walm stops and the woman's offer echoes in his head, repeating. The street is thick with beggars and prostitutes as someone notes the fact casually, and Walm replies that he is fine. A hand reaches out and grabs the back of Walm's cloak. Walm and the long-haired woman face each other on the street. She asks once more about tonight. Walm turns her down plainly. He says he does not need anything. The woman's face lingers in a narrow frame. Walm looks down at her, eyes heavy. The woman looks down from above, two slumped figures behind her against the wall. The woman's eyes drift downward. Walm looks down as well. A white sack hangs in a dark corner. Walm extends his hand toward the woman, offering something. She looks startled. The woman's eye and mouth catch a flicker of something. The woman walks away down the alley, past men slumped on the ground, and offers a quiet thank you. Walm watches her go, spear over his shoulder, saying nothing. Due's silhouette glances back over his shoulder and warns Walm not to feed them too much. Walm walks with the others and sputters a protest. He was not feeding anyone. Due smiles back and explains the practical risk. Word will spread and beggars will swarm him. Due tells him not to let his good nature get away from him. Walm concedes the point and walks past rows of seated beggars, saying he will be more careful despite everything. Due looks back with a grin and teases that Walm is a bloodthirsty machine on the battlefield. And yet Due finishes, he has still got a soft side. Walm stares flatly back, the old refrain about being just a soldier drifting through his mind. Walm's eyes fall as he thinks of beggars, poverty, things he knows from somewhere closer to home. A small thatched farmhouse sits alone in a field, the house Walm was born into. A younger Walm stares at the ground, face already carrying something too heavy for a child. Young Walm lies on the floor of a shack while his parents sit hunched in silent despair. Farming was never enough to survive. A small hand clutches a few beans or seeds, all there is. Present-day Walm stands before a memory of his family, a woman and children by a fence, and explains why he became a soldier. The army's pay was the only thing keeping his home alive. Walm looks down at a cluster of beggars against a wall and wonders if, without the soldiers' pay, his family would have ended up exactly like this. Walm's eyes drop further. Someone begins to explain what this place, Saria, the former Kenoa kingdom, once was. Walm and Due walk through the ruined streets as the word fertile is spoken about a land that no longer is. Due's scarred face tightens as he asks, "It was not always like this." A map shows Kenoa Kingdom bordered by the Highserk Empire. 5 years ago this land was still canon, before the border conflicts began. A hand holds a few beans over a trough, beans that were once cattle feed here, but that Walm's family would have fought over. Someone recalls the land as it once was vast, abundant, full of people, before adding that this is what Kenoa has become. Due says simply, "You get the idea." Walm looks at him with a faint, grim smile and asks how it came to this. A map traces the betrayal. The Mjard Grand Duke, a former Kano nobleman, abandoned his country during the Highserk War and defected to Farius, whose combined army then trampled Kenoa into ruin. A column of soldiers marches past a burning house. Kanon territory was seized one piece at a time until nothing remained, and the traitor crowned himself monarch of the ruins. Beggars sit exhausted on the ground, the human cost of a land sold out by its own noble. Walm walks forward, expression neutral, carrying the weight of what he has just heard. Due walks ahead and adds that Highserk lacked the forces to invade sooner, so they waited, and that is why the people suffer still. Due explains that the citizens of Kenoa carry a far deeper grudge against Mjard and Farius than they ever will against Highserk. Walm listens with his spear in hand, offering a dry comment that taking advantage of a warlike that is simply dirty. The rooftops of the city stretch overhead as someone asks whether this makes Mjard a more difficult enemy. Walm looks aside, scarf wrapped around his neck, and says only that Mjard is an enemy he intends to defeat. His expression settles into something quiet and somber. The group arrives at their destination, 3 small figures turning into a street of 2-story buildings. A tavern sign swings outside, and the drinks, someone announces, are on them. The 3 men raise their mugs at a wooden table loaded with bread and bottles, toasting to victory over Mjard. Walm sits quietly, looking down into a bowl of soup. A hand dips bread into the broth. Walm puts the bread in his mouth. He chews. Walm smiles faintly to himself. He thought he had eaten enough bean soup for a lifetime, but he has changed his mind. A ceramic bottle sits on the table as someone explains it is because everything in the army is half raw and half cooked. One of the men holds up his mug and agrees it is good. Due laughs heartily and tells them to eat and drink up. Walm smiles quietly with closed eyes, looking more at ease than he has in days. Later, Walm is slumped over the table while the other 2 look on and note that someone may have had a little too much. Walm is barely holding himself upright, covering his mouth and declaring through unfocused eyes that he is fine, he is simply vomiting a little. The table is buried under empty bottles and the silence of 2 men who have seen enough. One of the men leans back in his chair with a creak, smiling faintly. He looks down and begins to say something about Walm. Due stares down with a heavy, unreadable expression. The tavern sits quietly in the night. A lone figure is crouched or slumped deep in a dark alley between stone buildings. This is how it has always been, even before the war. Walm stands against a wall in the darkness, head bowed, eyes hidden. A woman's back and then Walm's hands pressed together. Someone calls it hypocrisy. Walm's face in profile, cast downward. Someone speaks the words as a soldier. Walm's eyes stare downward, half hidden behind his hair. Walm sits crumpled against a tall wall, small and alone in the empty space, as a voice cuts through, calling him not a soldier, but a murderer. The next morning, soldiers are called to gather in a stone castle courtyard ringed with towers. A line of soldiers in helmets and chainmail stands at attention, Walm among them looking solemn while others show a range of emotions. From a balcony above, Commander Gerard Berger, a massive, bearded man in ornate armor, shouts down at the assembled troops. The next morning, soldiers are called to gather in a stone castle courtyard ringed with towers. Gerard stands with his back to the camera, looking out over a massive sea of soldiers as he calls them the symbol of the Empire's bravery and declares that this 5-year war ends now. He commands them to trample the enemy without fear and show the world exactly who they chose to fight. Gerard raises a fist and roars the order, kill them all. The army erupts, weapons thrusting skyward, the roar swallowing everything. In the chaos of the rally, a soldier in the crowd looks terrified while another shouts. A dark thought surfaces, killing again. The answer comes quickly, it is kill or be killed. Walm stands in his helmet among the press of soldiers, exhausted and pale, heart hammering as he tells himself what he is. A female soldier notices and asks Walm if he is all right. He looks pale. Walm deflects it as a hangover, and the two of them exchange a glance. Another soldier glances back over his shoulder, saying nothing. 2 pairs of boots stand on dirt as a soldier offers to listen if something is wrong, adding with a straight face that he has no money, even if he managed to feed someone yesterday. A campaign map shows 3 routes carved into Mjard territory from Saria City, each one a different path to war. One route leads to a massive fort on the main road, garrisoned by 3,000 soldiers. Command predicts its capture will be especially difficult. Dewey's squad is marked on the map, and the rain begins. Squad stands on a ridge in silhouette, looking down at a massive stone fortress in the valley. Someone tells them to be glad their reward comes in the shape of a castle. Dewey grins widely and promises to give them directions. Soldiers stand assembled in formation near the camp below. A soldier in a chainmail hood smokes a cigarette against a tree and mutters that this is awful. A pile of cigarette butts already litters the ground at his feet. Someone shouts at another soldier to stop whatever he is doing. A soldier smokes in profile, unbothered. Someone makes a crude remark about Burrito as a joke, while Nor stands nearby, deeply unimpressed. Burrito announces he will personally prevent any brutality against women, while Nor sighs that she is fine and did not have anything to begin with. A helmeted soldier comments that Walm seems to be in fine form judging by his foul mouth. A female soldier stands between 2 trees holding her weapon, noting this is also her first real castle siege, and warning that newcomers placed in the front line are essentially substitutes for construction workers. She reassures them that Burrito and Nor will be fine, which produces enormous relief. She adds that if any enemy shows up, Walm will handle it, a professional who kills dozens without changing expression. Walm protests. He is not some battle-crazed maniac. He adds quietly that he does not want to watch newcomers die. The female soldier mentions she heard Walm killed 9 soldiers in the last engagement. Someone admits they're still worried, regardless. The female soldier's eye catches something steady, she is sure of Walm. Walm stares at his hand, sweat on his face, noting that something is clinging to his body, something heavy and hot. A pile of cigarette butts on the ground. A soldier peers into a horn or cup. 2 soldiers look upward sharply as something arrives. A sweating eye narrows, they are here. One soldier grabs another by the arm. The war is starting. The scarred soldier grins and tells everyone to give it everything they have. Walm's face fills the frame, determined, jaw set. A soldier stands ready in the distance. Soldiers crouch behind large wooden mantlets in an open field, bracing for what comes. A massive boot fills the foreground as soldiers huddle behind shields in the shadow of the castle wall. Battle diagram shows Walm and Dewey's squad positioned between 2 battalions facing the castle gate. A soldier swallows hard and peeks over the rim of a wooden shield. The castle walls loom overhead. Defenders line the battlements above. An archer on the wall draws back and aims. Soldiers push forward behind shields as projectiles rain down from the castle walls. A massive impact flings a soldier backward in a burst of debris and blood. Soldiers push forward behind shields as projectiles rain down from the castle walls. A commander shouts a warning from behind a wooden barrier. The enemy has the hard shoot skill, and everyone needs to keep their heads down. A soldier grits their teeth and begs for a break. 2 soldiers hunker behind a barrier as arrows punch into the wood. Nor is told she will die if she takes a single step back. The order goes out, move to the wall now. A female soldier shouts an incoming warning. A soldier peers out from under a helmet. A massive sphere of water crashes into a wooden barrier, obliterating it and the soldiers sheltering behind it. A character watches with wide eyes and a single word, he. A female soldier dripping with water identifies it, water bullets, enemy magic. A soaking wet Walm grits his teeth and remarks dryly that this is quite the welcome, being forced to play in water. The scarred soldier stares, they actually did it. A feathered soldier vaults over a wooden barrier with a shield. A soldier with an open mouth reacts with confusion. The top of the castle wall comes into view. Soldiers on top of the wall are targeted. Someone shouts that there is a magician up there. The order comes now. Soldiers surge past wooden barriers toward the castle wall. The command is to surround them quickly. 2 soldiers crouch against the wall and debate whether they will have to climb using ladders. A soldier checks a map showing the guards are concentrating at the gate. Walm and Dewey's squad seize the opening. Orders arrive from Battalion Commander Liguria. Do not fall behind the rest of the battalion. Launch a full assault. a pair of eyes beneath a helmet. The second part of the order lands break through the walls. Soldiers swarm up wooden ladders against the castle wall, someone roaring for everyone to hold on. Two soldiers climb together. Nor is told to stay behind her companion. From a distance, soldiers tumble from the ladders as defenders push back from the battlements above. The defenders on top shout to keep the attackers from climbing as bodies hit the ground below. A soldier's hands and head jerk as they are struck. A soldier reaches the top of the wall, straining toward the battlements. A helmeted soldier on the wall snaps wide-eyed at something just out of sight. Walm looks up from under his helmet with a strained curse. A soldier's skull is crushed and black liquid sprays outward. A soldier shouts his thanks to someone named Willard. A soldier in a vertical slotted visor smirks. A soldier reaches the top of the wall, straining toward the battlements. The battle rages on top of the wall near a tower. Soldiers hack at each other with spears and swords as blood arcs through the air. A row of defenders stare forward, visibly shaken. Walm swings a curved blade downward and blood flies. Blood-spattered face turns and shouts, "They are climbing." Walm brings his blade against a shield-bearing defender. A larger enemy swings a heavy curved sword at Walm. Walm drives his blade into the larger man's chest. Defenders close in from all sides on the wall as blood splashes below. Someone screams. Soldiers shout to surround him and marvel at what they are seeing. Nor's name is called. Something has gone wrong. Walm's eyes go wide. Nor. A towering knight in full plate armor and a cape stands holding a polearm, and Nor is on the ground in front of him. Nor lies with blood on her chest, staring upward, trying to form words that won't come. A knight's pointed visor fills the frame, metal ringing with impact. Walm takes one look and his face tightens. A knight. Walm launches himself at the knight with his blade. The knight catches the blow squarely on his round shield, sparks flying from the impact. The long castle wall is covered in soldiers, some still climbing ladders, others locked in combat along the battlements. Walm, sweating through his scarf, spits that the knight is only impressive against new recruits, a nobody. The knight in full plate levels his visor at Walm and declares he will not let the Empire's barbarian soldiers defile the soil of the principality. The knight's armored boot plants itself on the stone. The knight advances on Walm with shield and polearm, radiating force. Walm grimaces and braces. The knight swings his axe-headed polearm in a devastating arc toward Walm. Walm throws himself into a wide sword swing, trailing a white arc of motion. The two figures trade blows in a blur of motion lines. Walm looks aside for a half-second. Walm takes a hit to the shoulder and blood sprays from the wound. The knight's chest armor bears a scratch, barely, and the knight is shaken. Walm looks down with a grimace and thinks through the problem. The armor is too thick for a clean cut, and Nor needs him to finish this fast. The knight turns and walks toward Nor, leaving Walm behind. If this drags on, she dies. Walm notes that under normal circumstances, Dewey would be the one handling someone like this, but the commander drew too much attention and their path up was blocked the whole time. Walm's eyes burn through the sweat. Walm faces the knight again and makes up his mind. He has to bring this man down, right here, right now. Walm stares forward, eyes wide with the weight of what he is about to do. Walm and the knight face off in a wide stone courtyard, weapons drawn, the battlefield curved around them. Walm exhales a sharp, quiet sound. A sword tip points downward. The knight braces behind his shield as action lines radiate outward. Walm looks at the knight with blood on his face and a slight, dangerous grin, telling him exactly what he thinks of him. Walm and the knight face off in a wide stone courtyard, weapons drawn, the battlefield curved around them. Walm slashes diagonally upward with explosive force, jagged impact lines tearing across everything. Walm stares out from a face covered in blood and asks one word, how? Figures fall and blood fills the air. The knight lunges with his shield and tells Walm to give up. He is nothing but a small fry. Walm slashes diagonally upward with explosive force, jagged impact lines tearing across everything. The flat of the knight's axe spear presses against Walm's bloodied face, but something is different about Walm now. The knight slides back, losing ground. The knight cannot believe it. His axe spear should have taken Walm's eye. It is impossible. Walm stands with blood dripping from his hanging hand. Behind a visor, a shocked eye stares, that is. Walm crouches and draws, a faint magical aura surrounding his body. The knight recognizes it as a magical barrier. Walm bares his bloodied teeth and says he now understands what this power is. Walm raises his sword high with both hands. Everything feels light. The knight digs in behind his round shield and roars that he will not be looked down on. One figure launches high above the other. Jagged impact lines tear across the frame. Walm's blade sweeps in a massive horizontal arc that tears straight through the knight's armor, energy trailing behind the cut like wind made visible. A single word hangs in the air against black. Why? The knight falls backward as blood sprays from the wound at his neck. Behind the visor, a dying eye asks why this boy would be laughing. Walm stares back wide-eyed and grinning, teeth showing. Walm stands with his back turned, scarf drifting, as the dying knight's broken words trail after him, asking about the skill, the power, the movement. The knight's shattered helmet falls as he asks how a mere soldier could have defeated him. The caped knight lies dead and bloodied on the ground while Walm walks into the distance, and from the enemy ranks, the news of his death spreads in disbelief. Walm looks out over a battlefield churning with smoke, explosions, and scattered soldiers. A muscular soldier with a large axe charges forward and roars. They have secured a route up, and no one retreats. Soldiers pour through a narrow passage over the bodies of the fallen, shouting to kill every last enemy. Walm walks away from Nor, checking on her. She is bleeding, but it is not deep, and he tells her to stay careful because the battle is not over. Walm moves past another seated soldier, still assessing the wound. Walm looks down at his gauntleted fist, sweating, saying nothing for a long moment. Walm clenches his fist and thinks this is his power. His eye flashes, a power move. A nearby soldier lurches back in surprise as something blazes past them. An armored leg drives forward with crushing force. Soldiers are sent flying in a spray of blood. Walm grins ear to ear in profile, blood on his face. He just cannot help but try it out. Two figures stand near a stone tower in the aftermath. A distant voice tells Walm he was impressive back there. A silhouette looks toward the voice, Commander Dewey. An overhead view of the battlefield shows a handful of survivors standing among heaps of the dead, and Dewey tells Walm he has finally found his skill. Dewey pats Walm on the head and tells him to rest, leaving the rest to them. Walm, exhausted, agrees. Walm walks away, scarf trailing behind him. Nor calls after him. Nor watches him go. A woman in detailed armor thanks Walm warmly. The bleeding has stopped and she plans to return to the front lines. Walm stands in profile near a tower, weary but offering her a small smile in return. Walm's face up close, sweat and dried blood on his cheek, a faint, tired smile. A long stone passage is packed with soldiers and debris below. Blood drips down Walm's neck as he looks upward. Walm tells himself quietly that he somehow made it out alive. Walm sits slumped against a stone wall with his head bowed and a round shield beside him as the sun sets behind him. The besieged fort surrendered shortly after. The battle that began at dawn ended just before sunset, and yet this was only the outermost edge of the border. Walm's war was far from over, and hell had only just begun. Walm sits slumped against a stone wall with his head bowed and a round shield beside him as the sun sets behind him. The besieged fort surrendered shortly after. The battle that began at dawn ended just before sunset, and yet this was only the outermost edge of the border. Walm's war was far from over, and hell had only just begun. A tall armored soldier surveys something below, telling his companions that the enemy is unmistakably a magic user, wind and fire type. A dark-haired soldier holds his gaze steady, expression unreadable. A forest clearing sprawls into chaos, bodies and scattered supplies marking the wreckage of a camp, with word that more than 2 magic users still remain. 2 soldiers exchange grim disbelief, one asking whether the destruction they're looking at could possibly be the work of magic. Fallen soldier lies still on the ground, the upper half of his face completely destroyed by some terrible force. An overhead map lays out the grim situation. Surviving troops from the fallen fort have taken to the forests, launching guerrilla strikes that have brought the Highserk army's advance on the Mjard capital to a grinding halt. A forest camp lies in ruin, bodies and supplies strewn across the ground, testament to the heavy losses the army has suffered in men and material. Walm processes the report quietly, asking about the soldier found with his face caved in. 2 soldiers fume in silhouette. Another caravan has been hit, and the search parties sent out 3 days ago have found nothing. An overhead map lays out the grim situation. Surviving troops from the fallen fort have taken to the forests, launching guerrilla strikes that have brought the Highserk army's advance on the Mjard capital to a grinding halt. A soldier examines the body and rules out a halberd. The crushed area is far too wide for that kind of weapon. Walm considers the evidence, quietly suggesting a shield, delivered in repeated blows. 2 armored soldiers react with a start. Commander Dewey steps forward with his squad, confirming the theory. If it was a shield, then the killer likely carries the iron wall skill. Dewey explains that iron wall elevates even a wooden shield to the stopping power of iron, and in the hands of someone with the power skill, it becomes a lethal bludgeon. The tip of a spear hovers near scattered armor, a quiet reminder of what such a blow leaves behind. Walm's eye catches the light, expression unreadable beneath his helm. Walm stands with his halberd resting over his shoulder as the assessment comes in. At minimum 1 magic user and 1 skill user are coordinating these guerrilla strikes from Yard. Walm's expression tightens. This is a bad situation. A fellow soldier delivers the toll. A full company went hunting and came back empty-handed, having lost around 30 men the day before. An enemy soldier lies face down in the grass, dead. These remnants are proving far harder to put down than anyone expected. Soldiers move through the forest beyond the wreckage of a broken cart. Walm coaxes a small flame from his hand to light a cigarette. Walm exhales and glances upward, wondering aloud if the smell of tobacco might give them away. 2 soldiers trade a deadpan reply. Their own stench is far worse than any cigarette. Walm glances aside while a female soldier nearby listens, as he warns that wolves in a forest are exactly the kind of thing you do not want to run into. 3 soldiers linger at a distance as someone floats the idea of wearing perfume. Walm, still smoking, smirks back at them and suggests throwing on a skirt while they're at it. It might just lure the enemy out. A female soldier, identified as Nor, points at something off in the distance, and Walm turns his gaze to follow. Walm looks toward 3 bodies hanging from a tree branch, locals who sold their position to the Mjard troops. The female soldier stares at the sight, clearly shaken, managing only a hollow acknowledgement. 2 soldiers stand with their backs turned, facing the hanging figures as someone quietly addresses Nor and Walm. Walm walks alongside the female soldier through the shadow-lined path, recalling what someone told him early on, that it was people like these who were responsible for dozens of their comrades dying. The female soldier drops her gaze, struggling to find the words. Walm walks ahead, putting distance between them. Walm smokes in silence, face half turned away. A soldier with a feathered helmet grins and asks another, who is drinking, whether taking out the caravan attackers might come with some decent loot. Another soldier replies flatly, fighting both the skill user and the magic user at once would be like fighting Commander Dewey and Walm simultaneously, and asks if anyone honestly thinks they could win that. The feathered soldier deflates, admitting it would be impossible even if there were 20 of him. Walm glances back over his shoulder with a dry look. Walm smiles faintly and points out that he apparently does not count as a normal human to them anymore, which the soldier enthusiastically confirms. An explosion tears through the forest, the blast shaking the trees. The female soldier and 2 others spin toward the blast, eyes wide. Walm exhales a slow breath of smoke, expression unshifting. Walm turns, eyes sharp, weapon already in hand. A soldier comes sprinting in. The enemy has been caught in their search network, 300 to 400 meters ahead. Commander Dewey bellows the order, do not let them escape. Soldiers fan out, moving to flank from the right as word spreads that the enemy is cornered. The unit surges forward through the trees, swords drawn and moving fast. Foliage and tree trunks blur past in the rush of pursuit. Walm runs hard, scarf trailing behind him, jaw set with grim focus. The forest erupts into full battle as both forces crash into each other. 2 soldiers freeze in shock as a tactical diagram makes it clear. The enemy has reinforcements, with Mjard troops pushing back against Dewey's squad and the Highserk forces. Walm hurls himself into the fray, his blade carving through an enemy soldier in a brutal spray of blood. The forest erupts into full battle as both forces crash into each other. A hooded figure drives a blow into a scarf-wearing soldier, sending blood arcing as the soldier's head snaps back. A spear-carrying soldier in the background reacts with shock as a figure appears at the edge of the frame. The scarf-wearing soldier snaps his gaze to the right, eyes blown wide. A blade slices clean through a soldier's neck, blood spraying outward. A female soldier in armor braces her polearm, blood splattering the ground at her feet. The scarf-wearing soldier looks left, expression hard and alert. A single focused eye narrows, and the soldier calls his shot. A hooded figure drives a blow into a scarf-wearing soldier, sending blood arcing as the soldier's head snaps back. A blonde soldier at the center of the group thrusts out a hand in warning as armored figures rally behind with shields raised. They are the leading adventurers, and they are completely surrounded by enemy reinforcements. The blonde soldier pushes urgency into every word, telling the others to move fast and checking on the leader. A female character in a hat answers that she is managing, barely. 2 female soldiers reunite in the chaos, one calling out the other's name with shaking relief. A female soldier in armor explains to the hooded figure below her that adventurers are those who hunt demons and clear dungeons. The scarf-wearing soldier turns it over in his mind. He had been wondering how a rooted Mjard force could be pulling off guerrilla strikes this effectively. The scarf-wearing soldier narrows his gaze. If the adventurers were behind all of it, then what remains now are only the elite knights. 2 armored figures slam into each other, one driving in with a massive axe, the other meeting the blow with a shield. The scarf-wearing soldier watches the clash from behind, recognizing the iron wall skill at work. A mustachioed man grins broadly, noting that the guild claimed it would not interfere in the war. He gestures toward the forest around them and points out that what is happening right now tells a very different story. The scarf-wearing soldier sweats, offering no answer. A hooded man speaks with quiet amusement, suggesting that surely there are such things as freelance hired soldiers. An armored figure is torn apart by multiple blades at once, blood bursting outward as the body crumples. A booted foot rests on the ground. A piece of gear or clothing lies discarded. An axe or polearm blade rests on the ground, the fight at its end. A circular blast detonates from above, scattering figures across the ground in all directions. A hooded man recoils, a wind blade just tore through, and a magic user is in play. A lone figure crouches or has fallen in the open ground. The scarf-wearing soldier's eyes go sharp and still. The scarf-wearing soldier plants himself and levels a long spear toward the tree line, ready. A female character in a hat and long coat stands her ground in the forest, sword and shield in hand. The scarf-wearing soldier goes wide-eyed. He did not expect this. A shadow falls across the scene as the soldier registers that one of the adventurers is just a child, but magic users are a nuisance regardless of age. A smaller figure moves toward another through the trees. A pair of eyes burn with cold intent, a promise to kill. Two soldiers square up and dare the figure in the hat to bring it on, as she faces them down from across the clearing. An armored figure swings hard, the weapon cutting a wide arc through the air. The scarf-wearing soldier's mouth curves into a slight, dangerous smile. The scarf-wearing soldier drives his axe into a soldier with a single brutal stroke, severing an arm. A soldier is struck from behind, blood bursting from his chest as he cries out. The scarf-wearing soldier shoulders his weapon, one down and already moving to the next. The fight spreads through the trees as combatants scatter and clash. The scarf-wearing soldier drops low and slashes hard through another enemy, blood exploding outward in a wide arc. A soldier crashes to the ground, blood pooling around his head as anguished cries ring out. The figure in the hat stands at a distance, watching. A wounded soldier sprawls on the ground, reaching out with one bloodied hand and begging for help. The female character in the hat stares down, expression unreadable beneath the brim. The scarf-wearing soldier looks down at the man without mercy and tells him plainly, no one is coming. A sharp, crashing sound tears through the air. The female character in the hat walks away into the forest, a distant figure standing far behind her. The female character in the hat looks down and asks why, just why. The scarf-wearing soldier stands in the forest and turns the question back on her, why? The blonde woman erupts in anguish, demanding to know how someone can cut another person down so easily. The cloaked man stands in the forest over a body, saying nothing. A dead soldier lies face down on the ground, a sword nearby. The blonde woman looks down as the man answers quietly, on a battlefield, such things are necessary. The chainmail-hooded man holds his gaze steady, expression neutral. The chainmail-hooded man looks slightly to the side, face unreadable. The chainmail-hooded man looks directly back at her and says she has certainly killed her share of people herself. He stands at a distance in the trees with his axe over his shoulder, adding that this is a rather pointless conversation to be having. The blonde woman breaks, tears spilling from both eyes. The chainmail-hooded man sweeps his curved blade in a wide arc through the forest as her cry cuts through the air. The chainmail-hooded man moves fast and low. The magic attack is the same as before, same trajectory. He brings his axe down toward the woman as she raises a small round shield to intercept. The shield catches the blow in a brutal cross of impact lines, holding barely. The woman ends up on her back, chest heaving, completely spent. The chainmail-hooded man moves fast and low. The magic attack is the same as before, same trajectory. The chainmail-hooded man watches from under his hood, eye cold and calculating. He launches himself through the air with the axe raised, while the woman scrambles to defend with sword and shield. A round shield rests against a curved blade, and the recognition of a power skill lands. The axe crashes into the shield with a thunderous impact, debris flying from the force of the blow. The woman is driven to the ground by the impact, while the man stands in the background, weapon at his side. The chainmail-hooded man looks down at her in silence. He pieces it together. She had been forced back, but shifted into a defensive stance in an instant, someone with real training and combat experience behind her, which makes their last exchange seem all the more out of place, and then it clicks. The blonde woman sits in the dirt clutching her arm, expression twisted in pain. She's not used to killing. A booted foot steps forward. The woman is driven to the ground by the impact, while the man stands in the background, weapon at his side. The chainmail-hooded man looks down at her in silence. The chainmail-hooded man walks toward the woman where she remains on the ground in the forest. The side of the man's face is still and quiet. The blonde woman clutches her shoulder, pain radiating through her. A face tilts downward, expression hidden. The chainmail-hooded man looks down at her with heavy, tired eyes and tells her to just give up. The blonde woman stares up at him, sweat on her brow, eyes wide. The blonde woman looks up as a distant figure appears in the trees, and she cries out in desperate, ragged terror. A foot steps down close to a person on the ground with a sharp impact. The blonde woman flinches in surprise as a hand reaches toward her. The chainmail-hooded man looks down and tells her plainly, at the very least, she should remember the people she herself has killed. The two clash and a sword fight over the body on the ground between them. The blonde woman stares in shock, asking herself if she is already dead. The chainmail-hooded man holds his weapon close to the woman's chest as she raises a hand between them. A single leaf drifts down through the still forest, the two figures reduced to distant silhouettes. The chainmail-hooded man is drenched in sweat, voice low, calling out to her. The chainmail-hooded man's eyes fly open. Something has caught him completely off guard. A massive circular burst of force erupts between the two as their weapons meet in a violent clash. The chainmail-hooded man grimaces, sweat on his face, teeth gritted. The chainmail-hooded man drops into a low crouch as the blonde woman stands in the trees behind him. A boot lands hard on the ground. A long-haired man steps in front of the blonde woman with his sword raised, telling the leader to stay back. The blonde woman calls out his name, eyes wide, clearly shaken. The chainmail-hooded man, bloodied and worn, takes it all in, so this woman is the leader of these adventurers. The long-haired man swings his sword in a wide, forceful arc while a figure in the background grips a staff and watches. The helmeted chainmail soldier steadies his grip, repositioning his hand with deliberate calm. The helmeted chainmail soldier exhales and admits quietly that he hates this. A single eye watches, dark and still, framed by loose strands of hair. A burst of speed lines explodes from the lower corner. Something is moving very fast. The long-haired man and the helmeted soldier crash together in a blinding sword clash, impact light flaring between them. One of them spins or pivots in a rapid blurred motion, the movement so fast it barely registers. The helmeted soldier cuts his gaze to the side, suddenly very alert. The long-haired man crouches low in a clearing as wind and leaves swirl around him. The helmeted soldier reads it, body acceleration, and realizes this man is a skill user too. The long-haired man looks down and identifies his opponent, a wind magic user. The two men cross in a single explosive exchange, axe against sword, each reading the other perfectly. The helmeted soldier glances aside with a faint sweat, something has his attention. The long-haired man snarls back at him, eyes blazing, calling him an invader and telling him to shut up. The helmeted soldier smirks, teeth showing, and asks whether the long-haired man is really sure he wants to be fighting him specifically. The long-haired man turns to see the battle raging behind him, small figures locked in brutal combat in the distance. The long-haired man goes pale. This is not what he expected to see. A hooded figure takes a hit directly to the head, blood spraying from the impact. The long-haired man's eye goes wide, fruck. The helmeted soldier drives in hard as the long-haired man reacts, a name torn out of him like a wound. The helmeted soldier holds steady and tells him plainly, he has already adapted to the body acceleration. The long-haired man screams with everything he has, ordering Emmy to get out of the way. The helmeted soldier looks to the left, reading the field. The long-haired man snaps around in shock. An archer stands at the center of the battlefield, framed by the distant chaos of the fight. A female soldier with dark and light hair looks back over her shoulder, eyes wide with terror as her name rings out. The long-haired man and the helmeted soldier both pause as the archer appears in the background, and the long-haired man breathes a stunned exhale. A figure is struck in a chaotic burst of force and dark motion lines. A lone figure stands in the woods as sounds of pain cut through the air. The long-haired man screams Emmy's name over and over, tears streaming down his face. The helmeted soldier rockets across the field at full speed. The helmeted soldier drives his weapon forward, calling these invaders out of his mind. The long-haired man grits his teeth and wails back through tears that these monsters have no regard for the tears and blood of others, and screams his anguish into the fight. The helmeted soldier's face twists into something dark and smiling as he points out that they do so much killing themselves. He looks down and asks the question that cuts deepest, why do they seem to believe they cannot die? The long-haired man screams back at him through tears, telling him to shut up over and over that he will not. The long-haired man grips his weapon, the words dying in his throat. The long-haired man's eyes go wide, something has happened. The two men exchange blows in brutal close range, weapons grinding against each other. The long-haired man takes a strike to the neck or shoulder, blood spraying behind him as his body gives way. The helmeted soldier's eye fixes on the viewer, expression unreadable. The helmeted soldier stands over the long-haired man as he collapses or slumps back against a tree. A female soldier watches with a devastated, tear-streaked face. The helmeted soldier stands over the long-haired man, who is pinned to a tree by the weapon driven through him. The long-haired man screams, rage and grief and agony all tearing out of him at once. The female soldier looks on in horror, taking in the impossible, everyone is dead. The helmeted soldier stands with his sword, looking down with a quiet, aching envy. She's not used to killing, and he is so damned jealous of that. The long-haired man stares forward through tears, hollow and gasping. Elle is dead. Two leaves drift down through the quiet air. The helmeted soldier stands in profile, looking to the left. The long-haired man's hair falls loose beside the cold surface of the opponent's chainmail. The helmeted soldier walks away into the woods, muttering to himself. The helmeted soldier stops cold, a bead of sweat on his cheek. Something just beyond the frame has shocked him completely. The helmeted soldier looks up in alarm, demanding to know what kind of magic this is. A severed armored arm tumbles through the air trailing blood. Another helmeted soldier winces and curses, a hidden spell, and no idea who cast it. A helmeted soldier moves forward, suddenly on high alert. A dark-haired man with stubble smiles faintly as he looks down, sweating, and says simply that it is her. A figure in a coat stands in the forest clearing, blade in hand, right arm mangled and soaked in blood, leaves falling all around. Tears flood from a pair of eyes, streaming down in rivers. The light-haired figure, tiny at the end of a vast tunnel of energy tearing through the forest, releases a shattering scream. The The helmeted soldier stares toward it, face drenched in sweat and teeth clenched. This is not a joke. The air itself seems to split open as the force of it crashes outward. Soldiers are hurled through the air by an unseen force, bodies thrown and tumbling through the trees. A bearded soldier in a helmet bellows at the others. It is a ranged area attack, and they need to scatter now. Explosions and dust clouds erupt across the forested hillside, the ground coming apart under the assault. Smoke and dust billow upward in rising columns. Soldiers are hurled through the air by an unseen force, bodies thrown and tumbling through the trees. A dark-haired helmeted soldier watches as leaves drift past, sword ready, expression tight. The scarf-wearing helmeted soldier stands in a smoke-filled clearing with a sword planted in the ground before him and states plainly, "She ran." Two soldiers assess the aftermath. That kind of power must have cost her dearly, but it got her out. A bearded soldier sits on the ground, looking up and conceding the point she escaped, so it was worth it. A dark-haired helmeted soldier asks his squad leader whether they should give chase. The bearded soldier answers calmly, "No need, the main force of the Mjard remnants has already been broken, and there is no point doing more work than the situation demands." The order comes down, the march toward the Mjard capital continues from here. The scarf-wearing helmeted soldier stands alone in the trees and reflects. Those adventurers were skilled, and if they had simply been accustomed to death, it could easily have been his side in the ground. A torn and bloodied sleeve hangs loose around a raised hand. The dark-haired helmeted soldier looks quietly to the right. The light-haired character's mouth hangs open, drenched in sweat, face breaking apart. An eye peers out from beneath a hood and a curtain of hair, watching. The scarf-wearing helmeted soldier stands alone in the dark forest, small and distant, and says quietly that he does not kill because he wants to. The light-haired character sobs openly, rubbing at one eye with a fist, demanding to know what that man's problem was. A wide, dark eye stares out from solid black, and his voice echoes back, "Give up already." Two small figures run hard through the forest, putting as much distance as they can between themselves and the monster behind them. An eye peers out from beneath a hood and a curtain of hair, watching. Walm presses his hands together before his face in quiet prayer, his dark, messy hair and shadowed eyes betraying a man who has seen far too much. The story so far: Raizou Takakura, reborn as Walm after dying of a heart attack, now serves as a soldier of the beleaguered Highserk Empire, surrounded on all sides by larger enemies. A map lays out the deadly geography, the Farius Kingdom and Mjard Principality looming over Highserk territory, with Walm and his comrades' route cutting towards Saria City. To survive in this brutal world, Walm has done nothing but kill, watching comrades and enemies alike breathe their last as the Highserk Empire launches its desperate invasion against Mjard and Farius. Silhouettes of soldiers clash amid a field of fallen bodies, the world making its cruelty known without a single word. Walm raises his blade alongside a fellow soldier, two men doing what this merciless world demands of them. Across the breadth of the battlefield, countless soldiers clash and fall, the scale of the slaughter stretching as far as the eye can see. Against a rugged, rocky landscape, a voice calls out to Walm from just out of sight. Willat, a bald, scarred man bearing a circular mark over his eye and long, dangling earrings, raises his open palm in a commanding gesture and tells Walm to take his hand. Walm's face betrays a flicker of confusion as a bead of sweat trails down his cheek, and the title announces Episode 3, The Decisive Battle of Eidenberg. Soldiers rest and mill about along a forested riverbank, a small boat beached on the shore as the army takes its ease. Willat tells Walm that since he expressed interest in magic yesterday and they happen to be on break, now is the perfect time to teach him. Walm's eye narrows with quiet, focused intensity. Walm reaches out eagerly to take Willat's hand, a nervous smile on his face as he agrees he wants to learn. Two hands locked together in a firm, purposeful grip. Two soldiers nearby exchange curious glances, wondering what on earth those two are up to. One of the soldiers explains that Willat is transferring magical energy to Walm as part of the lesson. The other soldier's eyes go wide at the prospect of Walm actually being able to use magic. Soldier adds that once it's done, they'll find out whether Walm has the aptitude for it. The group waits at a distance among the trees as the transfer continues. The dark-haired soldier grins over his shoulder and quips that the hand-holding is looking pretty steamy. Walm grits through it, jaw tight and sweat beading on his brow as Willat watches from the side. The dark-haired soldier waves off his own comment with a grin, insisting it was just a joke. Willat tells Walm to concentrate, and Walm quietly agrees. Dark, flame-like energy seethes and pulses around their joined hands as the transfer takes hold. Walm's eyes snap shut as he reacts to the sudden rush of sensation. Willat instructs Walm to keep his consciousness intact. This physical sensation is the foundation of elemental magic, while Walm murmurs that it feels cold. Willat tells Walm to let go, their fingers just barely parting. Walm murmurs to himself, his mind drifting to images of water, rain, rivers. Willat instructs him to focus on his palms and picture a river or an ocean. Willett tells him either image will do, just feel how water moves. A vast expanse of open water stretches beneath a rain-heavy sky, tranquil and boundless. Walm's eye goes wide with sudden shock. A small sphere of water swirls and hovers above Walm's open palm. Walm stares at the water in his hand with pure, open-mouthed disbelief and immediately calls out to Willett, "This is magic, right?" Willett looks down at Walm's effort with a disappointed click of his tongue and declares it's no good. Walm throws his hands up in shock while Willett explains that while Walm can technically use it, the amount of magic he produced is barely worth mentioning. Willett announces that Walm will have to go through the same grueling experience he once did, becoming a human well. The rest of the squad waits among the trees, small and distant. Walm stares at Willett in blank confusion. Bearded, scarred soldier bursts into maniacal laughter at the news that the squad now has 2 human wells, all the water you can drink, all you can wash with. Walm breaks into nervous sweat as Willett calls on him to please cooperate. Willett asks Walm to try not to sweat so much if he can help it. Willett explains that water-based magic draws far less mana than the explosive power of Walm's combat skill. Walm stares back in sweaty, wide-eyed horror as Willett begins warning him of the consequences. Willett warns him to conserve his magical power or risk wringing himself completely dry. Walm stares back at Willett in a daze, barely processing what he's hearing. The realization crashes over Walm. He demands to know if he has been using magic this entire time. Willett holds up 2 fingers and confirms it plainly. Body reinforcement, and skills both draw on magical power, of course. Willett begins to lay out a broad explanation of how magical power works. He explains that using magical power for elemental techniques like fireballs and water spears is classified as magic. Techniques like power attacks and iron wall, which channel magical energy into body or weapon, are instead called skills. Walm admits with quiet embarrassment that he grew up illiterate on a farm under military rule, and asks if Willett really didn't know that. Willett moves things along, telling Walm it's time to test his aptitude for fire elemental magic. Walm echoes the word fire with cautious uncertainty. Willett and Walm sit across from each other on the grass beneath the trees, the lesson about to begin. Nearby, 2 soldiers laugh and splash water at each other in the field, blissfully unaware of what's coming. Willett's expression turns serious as he glances toward the soldiers. Willett's eyes fix with sharp focus. Something moves fast. Walm's eye sharpens with sudden awareness. Walm erupts in a towering pillar of flame, while Willett stands to the side watching, and Walm screams asking what he should do. A massive explosion of fire and light tears through the camp as the distant soldiers scatter and cry out in alarm. Willett watches in silence as a panicked soldier behind him screams that Walm is trying to burn the whole camp down, demanding to know what kind of fire attack this even is. Tasaka shrieks as his hair catches fire, while a female soldier behind him screams at Walm to stop. The female soldier runs as Tasaka hits the ground. Walm stares in wide-eyed horror, begging for forgiveness on Tasaka's behalf. Walm spins to Willett in the distance, panicking and asking what he's supposed to do. Willett extends his hand, small objects floating ominously around him as he readies his response. Walm barely gets out a warning before Willett acts. Walm is completely swallowed by an enormous sphere of water, his screams muffled inside it. The female soldier watches in shock as Walm's body is hurled through the air on a wave of water. Walm crashes into the field in a dramatic splash. The female soldier stares at where Walm landed as bubbles rise from the soaked ground. Walm pushes himself upright, completely drenched. Walm grabs his own head in dripping, furious despair and shouts that Willett has to be kidding him. Walm sits soaked on the ground as Willett reaches a hand down toward him. Willett hauls Walm back to his feet. Willett informs Walm with complete composure that the explosion confirms he has an aptitude for fire magic and that they should continue. Walm forces a pained, nervous smile through his obvious dread. A distant, agonized shriek echoes through the tree line. Commander Due, a scarred, battle-hardened man, snaps to attention. Due stands in the foreground as a messenger rides in on horseback with word from the Allied troops. The messenger informs Due that Captain Ligurian's orders are specifically for him. Due and a soldier stand with their backs turned, tension hanging in the air. Due smiles as he says he's very curious to know what those orders contain. Commander Due, a scarred, battle-hardened man, snaps to attention. The sweating messenger looks Due dead in the eye and tells him they are all absolutely insane. Due's expression cuts sharp with sudden alarm. Walm and Willett sit beneath a tree resting as Willett confirms the strategy has been decided. The Due squad has been ordered to merge immediately with the main battalion. The war will take place in the plains of Reref stretch out before a sea of soldiers and war tents, and someone murmurs that with this, the Highserk's defeat is all but certain. A finger traces the map, marking the 2 hills where the Mjard and Farius strongholds stand. The map shows the terrain lines and army positions in cold, tactical detail. The analysis continues. Highserk is clearly sending the bulk of its forces at Mjard first, leaving only a small detachment to pin down Farius. Inside a command tent, 4 robed advisors stand before a man seated at a desk, confirming that everything is unfolding exactly as predicted. Lord Farius Winston rests his chin on his hand, his dark eyes calculating beneath a jeweled headband. Winston declares that the Highserks are out of their minds. Winston rises from his seat. He goes on, those lunatics actually think they can hold down his 6,000-man army. Winston looks to his commanders and tells them he intends to make corpses of those Highserk troops. Winston's silhouette fills the mouth of the command tent as he surveys what lies ahead. Winston stands on a hillside over his assembled armies, his advisors confirming there are no gaps in the enemy's positioning. Winston's gaze hardens as he announces that Jeff's cavalry battalion will be the one to strike Mjard. Winston grudgingly acknowledges that the Highserks are sharp. He notes that the Highserks are leading their advance with their strongest troops, but Winston says as he walks forward, they are not his real enemy. Winston raises his sword wide and commands his army to emerge victorious for their king. A cold smile crosses Winston's lips as he reveals his true intent. He plans to let both Mjard and Highserk destroy each other here, so that everything falls to Farius. Winston watches dust rise in the distance. The Highserk forces have begun to move. The beginning has arrived. Highserk soldiers stand on a ridge staring down at an overwhelming allied force of 25,000, nearly double their own 15,000. Due stands with arms crossed at the center of his squad, Walm beside him holding his halberd, as the battle begins without them. Due asks Walm why he thinks the Mjard forces look so fierce right now, and Walm answers that it is probably because they are fighting on Farius soil. Due smiles grimly and says it is obvious they were called here to be disposed of. A female squad member stares forward, asking why they are being held in reserve. Walm finishes the thought when the battle has clearly already started. Due goes quiet, a bead of sweat running down his face as he looks away. Walm watches Due carefully, sensing something is wrong. Standing in the tall grass, Due tells them he will keep it brief. It took a long time to finalize the deployment plan. A tactical diagram lays it out. Highserk's main force will push toward the Mjard stronghold, and the final decisive action will happen simultaneously. Due explains that the Ligurian battalion, including the Due squad, will converge and blitz alongside Jeff's cavalry. Walm's face goes pale with the weight of what he just heard. A soldier shouts in disbelief. Infantry running alongside cavalry is pure madness. Another soldier asks why their squad specifically, and the answer comes, the Ligurian battalion was chosen because of their combat experience. Due's jaw tightens as he admits quietly that this worries him greatly. A soldier swallows hard and asks just how bad the situation really is. A hulking soldier tells him plainly, terrible, because it means they will literally have to run alongside horses. Someone stares downward, sweat trickling from their temple as the reality settles in. A soldier lays it out in brutal detail, even when their heart is ready to burst and their legs give out. Stopping means being crushed by the soldiers behind them, so they must keep killing while running or die, and just hearing it is enough to turn his stomach. The hulking soldier raises his fist and roars in outrage, demanding to know why their squad has to be on the front lines. The hulking soldier points his finger and declares the reason is Walm and his rampaging power move, then asks if anyone has stomach medicine. Walm stares back wide-eyed, stunned that the blame is landing on him. Walm fires back that Commander Due loses control far more often than he does. The hulking soldier stands in silence. Walm stares in disbelief at what he is hearing. A soldier spells it out. The squad has not one but 2 power move users, plus Willat's magic, so being chosen was inevitable, and the Ligurian battalion commander's loaded words of expectation suddenly make a lot more sense to everyone involved. A soldier's helmet catches the light as tension grips the air. A young soldier stares into the distance, sweat tracing a line down his face. Soldiers crash together in a chaotic tangle of spears and shields on a distant battlefield. A lone cavalry soldier sits motionless on his horse in a grassy field as someone asks whether they can actually keep pace with mounted troops. An eye stares forward wide, unblinking, desperate, as a voice whispers about making it to the end without dying. A soldier notices with unease that the attack orders still have not come. The hulking soldier wonders aloud if something has gone wrong with the vanguard. A young soldier stares ahead and suggests the plan may not be going as expected. 2 soldiers exchange a glance, and one begins to offer a counterpoint. A soldier in full plate armor surveys the field from above while someone below insists that Commander Berger would not misread the situation. A soldier grips his halberd and stares out at the horizon, suddenly tense. The ground trembles. A thunderous wall of Farius cavalry and infantry bears down on them. The main army has arrived. 2 soldiers stare in wide-eyed panic and ask what they are supposed to do. A soldier in a bird-crested helmet spins around, desperate to know where the attack orders are. Someone shouts the Mjard reserve army is visible on the hillside and heading straight for them. A soldier confirms it, they are coming here. The hulking soldier states the grim math coldly: if they do nothing, they will be wiped out. Eyes stare forward, wide, dripping with sweat and burning with decision. Commander in full armor roars the order to attack, declaring the Farius stronghold their new target as his army surges behind him. Soldiers react with confusion. That was never part of the plan. Others shout back that their target was supposed to be Mjard. Soldiers demand to know what is happening, their voices swallowed by the chaos. A cavalry knight drives his lance forward in a full charge. The cavalry has already launched. The order cuts through the noise: get ready. Boots and legs surge through tall grass as the soldiers break into a run. The infantry sprints across the open field, spears forward, moving as fast as their legs can carry them. A soldier in a scarf and helmet runs hard, glancing back over his shoulder. A soldier's face twists as he curses through gritted teeth. Eyes narrow and lock forward, focused, hard, and resigned to what comes next. A soldier leans into a full-tilt sprint, scarf whipping behind him, sword on his back, soldiers charging through the chaos all around him, running headlong into death.